In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 key principles that you need to learn in order to dance the dance between the masculine and feminine energies, not just from within, but also the number one key thing that you must master in order to experience a twin flame reunion. So stay tuned. Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I will help you live fearless, live loved, and live free. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. And make sure you get subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you know when all my videos come live, so you can stay up to date with all the offerings that I have to share. And today I want to talk to you about some things that I'm seeing in clients and in myself, and that is how that if you want to experience this twin flame reunion and bring it home, basically, of some things that must be mastered, and the number one takeaway that you have to come into alignment with before you can experience the fullness of that twin flame reunion. Before I do, though, I want to, just in case anybody's new to my channel or new to this concept, I just want you to understand a little bit about the idea of the twin flame reunion. So the first thing we want to say to that is that the twin flame journey has multiple stages that we go through to process this journey. And as most people know, we have that initial phase of the coming into connection, and that is basically having that bubble love phase, or that initial wake up, that soul recognition of the partner that's coming in and meeting your frequency of your soul signature, that creates a memory and awakening of having recognized that vibration or that frequency from, past times or lives, or just from the soul itself. It has a memory. In that memory, then, it creates a soul recognition or a soul integration, a soul merger, basically. So once the soul recognizes each other's souls, then they start to integrate and they merge. And in that merger, it creates a third body. And in that third body holds all the information energetically between the two of you. That is how you're telepathically communicating on such a very deep level, to the point where you feel things, know things, connect to things, know what the other one's thinking or saying, or all these things. In that, then, once this creates what a lot of people can experience is a bubble love connection. And that bubble love connection means that you bonded so deeply, so tightly, that it's the most magnified energy together that you have experienced. But in that, then, it creates the sense of love from a higher place. It creates the sense of parallel lives, the sense of moving in the same direction and same desires, and the most amazing experience, feeling that maybe you've ever experienced. But what that then does is it awakens the individuals to see each other as the mirrors, so that each one reflects to the opposite one what they need to see within themselves. And of course, we know in the twin flame journey that we have to be willing to see our own reflection in the mirror of the mirrored soul. And that then, when you create this, say one's usually of the light, one could be of the shadows. And as that comes together, it's also that most of the time when it ignites, it's coming in the contrast or the polarity of the opposite. So one could be in the light, one could be in the shadow, and then one brings the light into the other one, helps to lift and raise that frequency, bringing that up, and help each other heal and come into a place of more alignment equally. But it becomes a tennis match, really, of then bouncing this ball in the yin and the yang, and that the only place you fully come into alignment is in the actual cross of that energy, of that masculine and feminine energy. So as this dance takes place between this, this masculine and feminine energy, first of all within, that then comes into a certain frequency with them that now has to play this tennis match, that you're basically tossing the ball back and forth always. And there's only certain times you come into the perfect alignment. Otherwise, you're a lot of times in the contrast of each other. And this can be all the way down to the reunion itself. But to get to the reunion, to come into that harmony where you're two individuals and coming into alignment to create this oneness, or the sacred union between you, it creates that push-pull energy. It creates the karmic purge, and what most people know is the runner-chaser dynamic, because then the energy goes from hitting that neutrality of being in the same frequency to going into more contrast, more polarities, because now you're each reflecting what the other one needs from the opposite place that the other one needs to see it. And then it makes you feel and think like, oh, well, I'm out of alignment because we're not aligning. But it's really the reflection of yourself versus, the actual other person doing anything to you. It's really mirroring for you. Before you can come out of that karmic purge or that runner-chaser, there are certain things you have to do and take accountability for your own vibration, your own frequency, your own soul, to come into a unification. And that's where I want to talk about this. Number one key principle to know is you got to find neutrality within yourself in this dynamic. So that's the number one thing. So in this concept, in this idea, it takes two neutralized people, twins, to come into their neutralization, to come into this neutral point. All right. But you have to realize we're evolving people, we're always growing, and that means that in any relationship, as we evolve and grow, you have to have some commonality in your direction that's, your foundation of where you both want to head and what you want to go, where you want to go. But you then have to also, in that, become within yourself balanced enough to clear and raise your frequency enough to have certain things that are within yourself enough to take your own contrast within yourself, your own masculine and feminine energies, and to basically stop running from yourself and your own shadows and your own pain and your own wounds, because your twin and your mirrored reflection is basically only triggering your wounds so that you can see them and heal them. And they can always see in you what you can't really see in yourself. Whether you realize it or not, they're always seeing it, and they're also always feeling it. And that's how they may not want to talk about it, and they go into that distance, because then that's also seeing it as them. So it becomes like you see in them what is really in you, and that becomes the projection of what you don't want to see in yourself. So basically, to neutralize this in the stages of the togetherness, there has to come to some surrender within the individual people to find this balance of the resistance and the surrender of your own fears, your own faults, your own wounds, and take personal responsibility and accountability to heal yourself, to own your good and your bad, and to awaken emotions and feelings and be able to express in ways that you've never been able to do, so that you then can have that neutral place within yourself. And really, you're dancing yourself, really, because what happens is then your dance creates the dance with the other person as well. And if you learn how to neutralize your dance, then that will also neutralize and align and rebalance the person, your twin, that you're tossing this ball back and forth. And so as we move forward to number two, you have to be transparent, meaning in this awareness of yourself, you have to come into this place that you are so ready to be seen, because otherwise it's scary as hell, seeing yourself in that reflection. You have to be willing to see yourself, to see that yourself in that mirror. And And that means you also have to be willing to let them see the depths of who you are and the darkest places. And that's what most people don't want to feel or see or want anybody else to see for many reasons. So the way that we neutralize this is we go through this surrender, through that neutralization process of our individual selves, and we neutralize that. And we're finding the balance in the surrender and the resistance. Then we create these breakthroughs and these awarenesses in ourself that then creates, in that push-pull karmic purge, kind of going into that separation, we start to integrate what we've learned and see things from a higher place, and we start to begin to see what the other one's seeing, but we can't see it up front until we've kind of stepped away and then be able to see within ourselves what that was. So now we're able to then see our own part in that. And so then that takes number 3 to be vulnerable enough to be seen in that transparency, but vulnerable enough to be from a humble state, to come back into that reunion that's forming. Because I want to clarify something when I talk about this reunion. This neutrality point within yourself is creating the unity of you personally. Unifying your higher self, your lower self, your higher consciousness, your your subconsciousness, your right brain, your left brain, your head and your heart, your masculine and your feminine energies, and your inner state with your reality. Until these things neutralize and until you can come into that state of that unity within, then you can't find that wholeness, that completeness, and that ability to next step it takes for your transparency to then be open, raw, real, and be seen like this and vulnerable enough to kind of admit your mistakes or to stay plugged in. And so with that being said, then I feel like this is the perfect place to kind of share where that number 1 key thing you have to master in the unit now, all right? In the unit between the masculine and the feminine, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, has to have some level of commitment to the reunion of the two of you coming together. Because if there's not a dual commitment, then when you're tossing this ball back and forth, someone's dropping the ball, and that's leaving the other one hanging. And you have to come into this place within that unit that then now comes into the harmonization of your neutrality of the two of you, that you are able to then trust the other one, to know that they've got your back, to know that you're in it. And if you're not, either one of you are not committed to that level, then basically someone's always going to drop the ball. And if you aren't committed, they're not going to be committed. And so these things I'm telling you to come into, these things you must master to create the reunion, are things that you have to commit to in the reunion with the other person. One is because you're always evolving and growing. And number 1, you got to stay neutral. You got to not allow your wounds to react, and you got to learn to respond. You got to learn to speak things that you need and step back. You got to learn to share what your part is. You got to learn to be vulnerable, to be seen. And in number 4 of these key things, you got to learn to release the walls of protection. That's letting go of the past experiences, the things that have created these walls up and around you that are blocking you from being able to have the relationship you want because of your past experiences. And then the reason being is you got to trust this person, that they're with you. And of course, that's where commitment is the number 1 ingredient. Because if you're not moving in the same direction with both having the same amount of commitment, then there is no way that you can each trust the process that when you toss the ball, the other one's going to be there. And so you have to make this level of commitment to yourself then to release this past and to stay in that neutral place. As we move forward into the number 5th one, that's about becoming open to receive. So Now, what I will tell you in that, in my own experience, that I just have had, all of what I share with you, as always, is coming through my own experience of everything I go through is what I learned. So I'm going through this right now in a dynamic that's the deepest dynamic I've experienced thus far. And am I going to label that and say this is actually the one, or is it the one taken to the next one? I don't know. But what I don't want to like place that on there as an attachment to create the restriction. I want it to organically transpire, because otherwise you then block the flow as well. But what I will say is that in my own personal reflection of that, my level of commitment was not at the same place as his was from the get-go. And that left him with seeing more about me, of not being open to receive all that maybe he had to offer on one end, but on the flip end of that, through that, then he knew he couldn't fully open and receive, right? So then that leads into like the sixth one I want to talk about. You got to be able to speak your brutal truth. And that means like when it's time to like have these wounds that are coming up, you got to be able to go share like, hey, this hurts me. This bothers me. This is something that I see. This is what I feel. And you need to also be an active listener in this. So this is the contrast. So one needs to speak brutal truth. The other one needs to hold the space to listen. You have to hold these spaces. And that leads to the number 7, that creates the effective communication that is needed, that allows you to harmonize this. That harmonizing it mean that when you come in the contrast and the polarities, and you're doing a dance, and you're playing ball, and you're tossing that ball back and forth, that you cannot come into this reunion that you're wanting if you can't learn to also harmonize the individual neutral points of each person. And if you don't have some level of commitment, you don't have that level of trust, you just can't, experience it, because you can't trust that the other person is going to be there for you for everything that you need. And so I just really wanted to come here and share this, because this is really like something I've been going through. I've been seeing other people go through recently in this reunion that's happening for a lot of people right now. I'm seeing a lot of reunions, and it's something that I'm learning. And I think it's so important for you to understand the key ingredients. So that means if you're not in alignment to create a dynamic with a twin flame reunion, you need to first of all make a commitment that you want that type of relationship, and that when you go in, you're going to be all in. But to do that, you got to go all in with yourself, right? First, you got to make the commitment to yourself, and make a commitment that when that person shows up, that how committed are you? Well, and you may not always know that. And, they're coming in to show you, and that's what happened in my case. I thought I was ready for, this depths of a connection. And then, when it came time to just point some things out that, reflected the concept and the idea that how open was I to receiving the depths of that and being committed to one person, it sent me into that jolt, okay, kind of sent me back where they were only expressing kind of their truth, and then had to go into that space of what we all talk about and process that, but then to be able to come back and to share, okay, this is what I saw, but that's where you need the other person to also be committed to give you the space to do that, without bailing, basically. That means they have to be committed with you, to be there for you, so you have the space to go do what you need to do, and you need to give them the same. But the only way you can get on the same page is to go through the harmonization of like letting go of your wounds and knowing that you can receive, speaking your brutal truth, and then being in an effective communication. And that's what's going to bring full reunion. And I know I just kind of repeated that, but it came through again, kind of crisper, clear, more defined. And so anyway, Let me know where you're at in any stages of your own neutralization, your unification, your own harmonization within, or your harmonization with your beloved and or twin flame. And then if you're coming into reunion or getting close, then make sure to definitely let me know where you're at. And make sure to check out my mirrored reflection resource below that's free, so that you can for sure take that mirror test, so you can begin to see your own reflection of what's going on with your twin. Now, one thing I do feel coming through also, there's actually two things coming through that's just now dropping in. So number one is this person that comes in to be your perceived twin flame. They could be your twin flame, or they could be an ascension teacher taking you to the next level, right? And so sometimes, this is just doing that, teaching you the skills. But I can promise you, when it comes down to connecting with where you're to be, these things I'm talking about are going to be jointly creating this bond that's the only way to get on the same page. And so when that takes place, it's not like, we're going to be the spiritual guru that never has like things to clear or wounds to heal or something to learn. It's never going to go away. So you have to be willing to know when you enter, because a lot of times, this is what I was going to say the second part, we entered this concept thinking we're going to go be the spiritual guru, we're going to learn all these lessons, and now we're going to be free and clear to attract this person. And then it's all going to become to perfect alignment. And that is not going to happen to the depths of relationship that we're to have going forward, to be independent with interdependency, creating the redefined relationships where there's no jealousy and there is no control, and it still comes from a place of self-sovereignty and unconditional love, and without expectations and conditions. That's where that neutrality has to come from within, and in those wounds healed. But do not think that you're going to get all this healed and then have your reunion. You're going to have to experience this to come into the reunion and harmonize with that person to get there. So keep that in mind as you go forward. Okay, make sure to like, comment, share the shine, and let me know how you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. May you always face your fears, find freedom, and glow forward on fire. Namaste.